Alright y'all, today we're going to do a somewhat easy, quick way to deconstruct a rotisserie chicken. I'm sure you see them at your grocery store as well, hot and ready to go. I love rotisserie chicken myself, but I mainly buy these to break them down to feed my pups. Don't get me wrong, I'll save as much as I can for myself, but they have a special diet where they eat a lot of chicken. But to get started, usually I'll take the whole bird as is. I'll break off the neck portion, and then I start with the wings. Now I want to try to grab all of that knuckle and meat that connects right there. That way when I turn it around, I can get that knuckle out of there and save that part for the dogs. Now the meat, I'm just going to peel it off the bone, set it right over here. And for my bones itself, I'm just going to put those to the side for a minute. Tipped wing, and give that to the pups as well. And the flat part of the wing, pretty easy to pull the bones out. Just slide them right out of there. Alright, then I come to the other side. I want to grab all the knuckle and everything I can from that. Turn it around again, get all the meat off. Pull that bone out. And if some of that knuckle and stuff does stick to the bone like it tends to, just kind of use your fingernail to pull it out. A lot of meat there. And all these little knuckles and things, again, going to the pups. And the meat from the chicken you can use for any dish you want to make. Whether you're doing like a King Ranch casserole, you're doing any kind of casserole really. So now we start with the legs here. And I like to pull it right at the thigh. Just pull it all the way off. Save that meat. And pull up. There's your leg. I'm going to save the skin as well for all that flavor. And you got that one thigh bone in there. Just pull all the meat right off. I'm going to set that aside. And again with the knuckles, we just peel them off with our fingernail. And it's really good and healthy for the dogs, all that cartilage. With the leg, I like to take the top knuckle part, kind of grab it, pull it right off, and it should most times bring out this pin bone as well. Now that is something you definitely want to avoid giving to your dogs. They get stuck in their tract and ain't nothing good about that. So we pull all the meat off the leg there. Again, saving the knuckles for the pups. Get all that off. And then also on the leg bone right here, you'll see this part where it connects to the hip. It's very soft up there. I like to kind of shave that off and then dig out some of that bone marrow for the dogs as well. So this bone I'll actually set to the side there. Now, when you get the legs completely off, like so, start breaking down the rest of it here. And get all that meat off. Get the knuckles out of there. Get this leg portion done as well. And again, pin bone, we want to discard that. Get all that meat off of there. And again, pulling that knuckle right off. Saving this bone for that bone marrow. Now here's where a lot of people kind of get sidetracked, is they don't save as much as they should on the back portion of the chicken. So I'm going to pull the tail off there, save that for the dogs. This is what you call the oyster of the chicken. It's going to be the most flavorful part. It sits like right at the back hip. I'm going to save that meat as well. And again, that just sits right there on the back of the chicken. It's a nice little morsel. Then I'm going to pull these hip bones out. Now a lot of people tell you not to feed your dogs bones, chicken bones, especially if they're cooked. There's only certain portions you can and certain portions you cannot. So all of this stuff that I'm pulling off, the hip blade and all that kind of stuff, they can eat those. You don't want to give them the leg bones or the wing bones because those tend to splinter and it's not good for their digestion. Now all this extra fat and skin and things like that, I'm going to put that aside as well and give that to the pups. But I'm going to be conscious of pulling all the meat off of it because we're saving that for us. Now on the back as well, right along the shoulder blade here and along the back, I like to just scrape down. It'll get that meat right off of there. Same with this side, just scrape down, get the meat right off. And then along the back as well, the spine, there's a nice little piece of meat there. We don't want to lose that either. Right here, we're going to pull it right off. It's got good flavor. It's a good part of the bone, good part of the chicken to eat. And again, once we start getting into these rib bones and stuff like that, I avoid giving that to the dogs at all costs. Because again, it does splinter and it ain't good for them. So now when we get most of this meat pulled off the back, I'm not quite done with it yet, but I am going to rip the back of the rib cage off there. And just, observe if there's any more meat you can get off of there. You don't want to waste. So I'm going to get as much of that as I can off, trying to avoid any little bones that might come off with it. And once we get to this part with the ribs off, we're going to go back up top here to where the wing was connected. There's a bunch of little bones and cartilage in here that's worth saving for the dogs. What I'll do is I'll end up like twisting that first bone out of there. Get the meat out as you can. Same with the knuckle here. We want to save that. Good cartilage. And on that shoulder blade, you want to get all that meat off as well, avoiding the knuckle in your meat mixture there. But again, take your nail, pull off that little portion of the knuckle. Very good for your protein for the dogs. Do the same on the other side, kind of just twist it out of there. Get the meat off where I can. Like so. And again, we're going to save those knuckles. Get all that off for them. Again, that's another piece of bone we don't want to keep. Now, when you get to this part, there is a wishbone in here, and a lot of times it is broken. But just try to pull it out. See, this one was broken in half. But you want to make sure you get both halves out of there. And then I'm going to take my 2 fingers here, and I'm going to go to the sternum of the chicken. I'm just going to try to pull that whole sternum part right out. And again, there'll be some meat you don't want to miss. And same with right here for the dogs. A lot of cartilage in that chicken. Good for their joints, good for their protein. Just take off any of the bones that might splinter. You can save that part for them as well. Now, you've basically got your whole breast here ready to rock and roll. I'm just going to split it in half like so. I'm going to save that breast meat to the side. Any little scraps mixed in with the juice, we want to save that as well. A lot of good flavor. And lastly, I'll show you how to get that marrow out for the dogs as well. In the meantime, I'll discard all the stuff I'm not keeping here. Alright, so as I was saying, you take that top part where it meets the hip. I usually just kind of shave off a little bit so it's nice little pieces for them. Then get your tip of your knife and just start kind of twisting in there. Back and forth. You can dig some of that marrow out for them. Again, delicious. They love it. But as you can see, as I'm doing this, you want to be careful because that bone does start to splinter. And that's the part you do not want your dogs eating. But let's see if we can get the other one ready to rock and roll. Shave off the hip. Get your tip. Twist it in there. Not with a lot of force. You want to twist more than you want to force down. And it starts to get all that marrow out of there. Alright. Then after that, these get discarded. So I got the stuff for my dogs to snack on here. And look at all that meat that comes off of that chicken. And again, can be used in any recipe that calls for shredded chicken or diced chicken. But again, that rotisserie from the store, it cooks so slow, and for, over the rotisserie, gives it awesome flavor. So I'm going to set this aside, and we're going to make a dish with that in the near future.